These big moments. When we talk about big moments, I don't know that anyone has...
If you're looking as well, the caliber of play, even if you don't have that same list of accomplishments, you don't have that world. It's going to be so important because you want the Ghost, you want stuff that's not going to be perishing to a Kingdra that is going to be with. So let's see how this changes up as we head into the grand finals here in Toronto. Make some noise. Jump Bluff Incineroar for Marco. For Wolfe, that's Gothitelle and Kingdra.
I really, really love this. Gothitelle, sleep powders if you need to.
And when you're eyeing up something like the speed control, seeing that there is this Kingdra on the other end, you could have been punished with the potential of something like this Trick Room, but instead the swap out. That's Gothitelle leaving, Incineroar coming on in as Tailwind. Marco is going to have the speed favor in his turn for the next few turns, is now a knockoff into that Kingdra. A little bit of damage, Life Orb gone. This is going to be reducing the amount of damage as Draco Meteor into the Jump Bluff, brings it down to just below half health.
Pivot right back out with Parting Shot.
Even if one Pokemon is safe from the Sleep Powder, the other is not, and Kingdra doesn't do the most damage and now won't do any damage as it has to take a turn of Sleep. Parting Shot into the Incineroar. That's going to be attack drop as well as a way to pivot out into something that could take a little bit more advantage of his situation. And
losing that Flame Orb would be very, very rough for Marco. That is a big bit of damage that would no longer be available. Kingdra takes its first mandatory sleep turn from that Sleep Powder and knockoff straight into Ursaluna. There is no Flame Orb. There is no choice after that, but it will be mitigated for the rest of this game.
And that could be a situation where you're then forced into something that's a single target, and doubly so now that Porygon 2 comes out onto the field, getting that attack boost. Terastallization, we got to see the lock-in. Make sure that this Ursaluna is nice and safe going into that Ghost Shot
on the field, and possibly even Terastallize, though I bet this is the Incineroar instead.
Even if this Ursaluna isn't doing as much damage, it's coming on out into this Incineroar. It's lost that weakness, so much damage, but not nearly enough to get that KO. Of course, a defense, special defense drop, and Kingdra is going to wake up. Draco Meteor yet again connected. It is -2 into the Porygon. That's going to be fine, but still, you would have loved to see that sleeping for just a little bit longer.
Incineroar surviving that headlong rush, thanks to the Ghost Terastallization, means it will have the opportunity to Parting Shot this Ursaluna, further mitigating its. This Ghost Terra is very helpful for Marco, is that now careful here. Kingdra will swap out to reset that -4 special attack. And we're going to see the Politoed come in instead, so no Incineroar just yet. Will be there to set up the rain with Drizzle as the Gothitelle has the chance to go for something like a fake out on its first turn out, but no fake out just yet.
Nope. Instead, you're going to see another move of choice, this Headlong Rush. Not even enough to bring the the Politoed, the other Pokemon down below half, as that's going to be Psychic into Ursaluna, doing more and more damage since we have been seeing the Ursaluna lowering its stats through these turns. Now Porygon 2 is going to be the one twisting these dimensions.
Trick Room set up, so Ursaluna should be the first thing acting, which is, you know, a nice twist for Wolfe here, for Marco here rather. His turn is vulnerable.
So with it being so vulnerable, a Protect makes sense. Or Psychic yet again, trying to fire off into that slot, get rid of that big bad bear, nothing happening. Now the Porygon 2 will have the opportunity to attack into this Politoed. Just another attempt at just chipping away as Perish Song, the move of choice. Of course, since the Ursaluna has Terastallized, it will be able to have this opportunity to swap out, but the Porygon 2 won't.
Interesting choice there from Wolfe. This Ursaluna will have the ability to swap out, like you just said, Sierra, which means that the Perish Song won't be very effective on it. But this Porygon 2 is locked on the field. And given that this Ursaluna is at -...
already taken, so Ursaluna, that's finally going to be the swap out. But if Wolfe decides not to just protect and hits into the other slot, Marco could still be down on this. It is going to be just a swap from both trainers as Jumpluff hits the field, Politoed leaves, make sure that Perish gets reset, and Incineroar for Wolfe to have Fake Out on the next turn.
Fake Out will now be active. Intimidate comes through, meaning absolutely nothing into these two. Well, one special attacker and one no attacker. Psychic will be into this Jumpluff, though, and it barely hangs on, which means that Wolfe will not have a Pokemon advantage just yet. And Terra Blast quickly targeting that Gothitelle as the Ghost-type Incineroar that would have come in or would have taken 0 damage.
Dude, the Porygon 2 is probably the only thing that really does damage if this Ursaluna doesn't get that Guts boost.
Exactly.
All right, Rage Powder from this Jumpluff. So it is going to be the center of attention, sliver of health. Porygon 2, it's going to have a little bit more opportunity to try and fight this battle, as finally that second Psychic is going to be enough. Porygon 2, I mean, it doesn't even get to do anything because of the flinch. So yeah, we're just going to see a very sad...
You caught it before the turn started. Marco actually targeted his own jump left with Ice Beam as well, which is really cool. It's a nice way to make sure that jump perished on from Politoed.
And now we're going to have to protect from Incineroar for Wolfe, as the one over on the other end hits the field. Another round of Psychic, of course, into this Porygon 2. Is it damage that won't necessarily matter since it's going to be gone anyways. And Gothitelle finally brought right below half, which means it gets a Citrus Berry, and it gets to go kind of back where that turn started.
Yeah, but it will actually be knocked out by a Parasong at the end of this turn as well. I believe it was on the field subject to that Parasong when Politoed went for it. And now the Perish counts fall to 0. So Gothitelle and Porygon 2 will be knocked out. But I think that's a very worthwhile trade if you're Wolfe. You no longer need Shadow Tag, as Marco only has 2 Pokemon remaining. Your Gothitelle, it's going to be hard to switch it in and out without giving your other Pokemon too much Politoed. And you have some pretty devastating Muddy Waters on the table.
Yeah, you don't even have to go for any sort of Parasong.
It doesn't need it for the power. One Weather Ball should be able to knock out Ursaluna from this low HP. And because it is missing that item, the knockoff from Marco's own Incineroar will not have the damage boost. So you can probably even ignore that Incineroar this turn, make sure that the Ursaluna doesn't get an attack off here, and go straight for that Weather Ball.
And already so low health. Like you said, you don't need that Life Orb to be picking up this KO, and all of a sudden it's Incineroar against the world. And when we're eyeing up an Incineroar that only has the knockoff really for attacking, since Flare Blitz isn't really going to accomplish much against these Pokemon, nonetheless in the rain, it's going to be a situation where Wolfe will be able to...
Points. But looking at the end game state here, plays that are really, really hard to punish.
And Charizard doesn't appreciate trying to hit fire moves into these water-type Pokemon. So kicking off our game number 2, we're going to see an Incineroar apiece for our competitors. And Jumpluff, yet again, a reappearance. And Kingdra, again, for Wolfe.
We're seeing the Intimidate come out from Marco's Incineroar.
Politoed in and attack with this Kingdra. That could be bye-bye Incineroar for Marco, but instead, Protect. No fake out, no damage. Kingdra is going to be safe. So Marco will be able to go ahead and set up this Tailwind and get the speed in his favor. Now Wolfe will have an Incineroar able to act, and where it's going to target, that'll be the knockoff. So just a little bit of damage into that jump.
Now, can prevent Jumpluff from moving, but not just yet as Sleep Powder comes through.
Kingdra's having a bad game so far. Going to be sleeping. And when we're talking about Pokemon getting things knocked off, that is going to be Incineroar on Marco's end, acting first, and Safety Goggles eliminated from the other end. So now Marco on this next turn can go ahead and try and Sleep Powder into that Incineroar as well. Parting Shot, so that might be a Sleep Powder save for down the line, and a new target coming on into the field. 2
very convenient knockoffs in a row. First to enable Fake Out, and now to enable Sleep Powder into that slot. One of the strengths of the Incineroar on Wolfe's side of the field is that it was very easily able to switch into this combination of jump control the game again.
I'm just looking at the and then what coming out from Marco in this situation too, because the Kingdra's sleeping, but it can't be waking up at any time. That's going to be a parting shot into own Jumpluff to secure a promised switch out for the Incineroar in face of the fact it wouldn't be able to switch out before thanks to that Shadow Tag.
In parting shotting yourself makes a lot of sense there, because it guarantees that even if Wolfe happens to get a double protect off on this turn, you are able to swap out, and you don't care about lowering your Jumpluff stats because it doesn't have any attacking moves. Ursaluna is able to swap in here without taking any damage, without taking...
See, of course, if the Kingdra's going to wake up, but for now, Gothitelle is switching out. Politoed is going to join the field, so it looks like Marco might have made the right call, because, of course, Politoed is going to bring this rain, but the Jumpluff right after this Terastallization moment, let's hold on a second, we'll get to see a weather rewrite real soon as Kingdra.
After Kingdra loses its speed boost from Swift Swim, Ursaluna will attack next. Unless it's trained to be very, very slow, but no, Earthquake comes out.
I would hope not when you're having it next to it, Tailwind. Marco knows what he's doing. Kingdra will wake up, taking a lot of damage, but Weather Ball, of course, this is going to be a different type of Weather Ball now with that sun hitting into the Ursaluna. Good amount of damage, but that's not the damage that we would have liked to see if the weather was still the rain. And now you're still going to have the advantage of the speed onto this next turn.
A really nice turn from Marco there, knowing that Politoed very likely swaps in for that Gothitelle to activate both the Swift Swim and the damage boost.
Even if there is a switch going around with that Tailwind just leaving, Marco can go ahead and reset it up in a situation where this Ursaluna is still going to be able to attack. So it's just going to be a double switch on out from Wolfe. So both of these are going to be the targets of this Earthquake, though Incineroar will at least try and drop the attack a little bit, but I still don't think it's going to appreciate what's coming next.
It really won't, especially because Tailwind immediately goes back up, re-establishing the speed boost on Marco's side of the field. And another Earthquake comes through here. Intimidate is active, so maybe not big one-hit KOs here, but still so much damage.
The Incineroar is just going to hold on a sliver of health, so Wolfe not going to lose either Pokemon.
Ghost Terastallization in play with Ursaluna as well, but no, straight for the fake out.
Yeah, so that's going to be an Ursaluna.
Oh, no.
It doesn't act, and Jump Left that's not much better off is going to be a Sleep Powder miss. And Trick Room, Marco had the speed, and that is going to be to his detriment, as all of his speedy Pokemon are going to be oh so slow. Ursaluna at this point now, sure, that's a... So yeah, Incineroar will be protecting on this one. You still have to be worrying about the threat of this Jump Left and the Sleep Powder. So we'll play the slow and steady game instead. Both of the Pokemon are going to go ahead and protect.
You have to wonder if the Trick Room actually helps Wolfe that much going forward. Like, you do get to mitigate that Tailwind, but after these two Pokemon on Wolfe's side of the field go down, you have the Politoed and the Kingdra left, and you don't necessarily want Trick Room up for that Kingdra. So you might think, you know, is Wolfe going to try and reset Trick Room on this coming turn, knowing that Ursaluna will be knocked out, Tailwind will be running out soon, and neither of these Pokemon can switch out.
And even looking at the fact this is Incineroar for Wolfe doesn't have Flare Blitz, it would most likely have to be this double up. Knockoff will be the first, a critical hit, but it's not going to be enough. The Psychic is going to be forced to target into this. Jump Left goes down. Ursaluna, one more attack for the road before it too is going to be KO'd in this match. And Earthquake hits everything. Incineroar on his sliver is gone, and Gothitelle will hold on just a little longer.
Ursaluna will be knocked out by the burn, though, so the Pokemon count is now 3-2 in Wolfe's favor. This is exactly the kind of situation where Wolfe can potentially bring in Politoed and go straight for what could be a game-ending Perish song. Sunlight does fade, and I do believe Tailwind is still active, so that means that since Trick Room is up, Wolfe will have the speed advantage.
Yeah, and that is exactly...
Nope, it just ended.
It does have an Incineroar to contend with on the other end.
This is really tough. You know, this is a situation where the Porygon 2 is probably not going to be knocked out by a combination of attacks in the next few turns, but if you're not getting rid of this Politoed, you can just get Perish Songed, and if you ignore the Gothitelle, then Kingdra might even come in and these two Pokemon, but Gothitelle opts to not allow that to happen, going straight for the Protect instead.
When you're eyeing up the fake out on the other end and two Pokemon that are on a third of their health, the Protects just make so much sense, especially since it seems like the time is more so on your side. Now, no fake out, no hits coming out from this Porygon 2, but it does give a passive turn to reverse the speed orders.
The scary thing, too, now is that this Incineroar just used Fake Out in front of a Politoed with Encore. So if you don't know that your Incineroar is faster...
To try and make sure this Perish Song wasn't going to be happening. Maybe like a, you know, it's done if you do, it's done if you don't. Beating's going to be coming on out. Knockoff into Politoed. No Perish Song for Wolfe. No Politoed, and two Pokemon left.
Thankfully, that Incineroar is faster for Marco, so a really important break there. Terra Blast into Gothitelle is not enough for a KO, which means Gothitelle does have the chance to Psychic this Porygon for a little bit of damage. But with Kingdra coming in, already having taken so much damage, oh, that special defense drop, though, could be a little bit important.
Yeah, when we're looking at this speed tiering, we're looking at this.
As Kingdra, you know, has to go for these muddy waters now.
That's a double connect, though, onto this turn. Neither is going to be super effective. Both will be hanging on through that. The Kingdra, so much damage with this muddy water in the rain. Up to see, I don't think any accuracy drops either. We get the Citrus Berry recovery, and with that, Marco will be able to follow up. Knockoff is going to take that Kingdra down. That was so close. That could have been the game-winning, the regional-winning muddy water, but holding on just a sliver of health. Now Terra Blast, the Porygon 2, wasn't able to finish the Gothitelle off last time, but will this time. We're now tied and get to go to a
Earthquakes. And when you have a team like to assume that it moves first, but now you're no longer under the threat of that Encore after a fake out. Immediately with the weather mode, though, Wolfe leading that Politoed Kingdra, the tried and true duo from ages past, taking the Intimidate, but who really cares because they're both special.
Prospect. Kingdra with the Protect, though, of course, when you are looking at this fake out pressure on the opposing end, it is something that only the one actually, the Politoed didn't protect.
No, it didn't. An Encore or Weather Ball here could be very devastating for Marco if Wolfe calls this correctly. Tailwind is set up, which establishes the speed advantage, but what did this Politoed do?
That's going to be the Encore, and into this Jump Left. It's not going to have the opportunity to go for the Sunny.
That's so much momentum lost.
So we will have to see the jump left switch out onto this turret, and Porygon 2, again, like you said, that Ursaluna after a Muddy Water, that would not be hanging on very well. So we'll have to see that swap as Terrestrialization coming on out. Before, we've gotten to see that it was the Kingdra for the Stellar Terrestrialization, but it's going to be it's now Weather Ball instead. We're not going to worry about accuracy checks. We're going for one Pokemon and one Pokemon only, but not enough to pick up the KO.
Huge burst of damage there. Incineroar will be able to eat its Citrus Berry to heal up some of that damage, but it still lost so much HP, and now it is in a space where it really can't swap into moves anymore. Parting Shot coming out will lower the special attack of Kingdra, which helps a little bit, but at the same time, like, you're not doing any damage this turn.
Absolutely not. It can go for Weather Override, and since Politoed is out on the field still, it is going to be a weather that it can't override for a little bit. And Weather Ball into the jump left is not deciding one. At least you're not going to take a hit from the Kingdra. If you're swapping a Pokemon out and it's going to be a hit from the Kingdra right away, it could be so dangerous. But it's going to be this turn for the Kingdra slot that Intimidate comes onto the field. So that's going to be a safety goggles with it as Porygon 2 swaps out. And barring not getting KO'd, the Ursaluna will be able to get the switch in to get that Flame Orb activation on this turn. As now we get to see Terrestrialization from Wolfe. Now this is going to be the Politoed. This is not one.
This Terrestrialization, Sleep Powder, doesn't matter which target, the Safety Goggles and the Grass Terra will block it, and Politoed gets to set up a Perish Song instead. That was a great play by Wolfe here, just to force some shuffling by both of these trainers. Of course, there is no Gothitelle out on the field yet, so if Marco wants, he can swap both of these Pokemon out this turn, but in doing so, he would leave the Incineroar and the Porygon 2 in the back vulnerable to taking a lot of damage right off the...
Looking at what can really hit into this turn, it's not really too much damage, but just fake out, no swaps, Sunny Day.
Sunny Day comes out, which means that Sun will be up for at least the next couple turns, but Fake Out prevents the Ursaluna from going for any attacks. Weather Ball here, now a Fire-type attack thanks to that Sunny Day. Still does a decent chunk to that Ursaluna, but notably does not KO thanks to the Water typing being removed here. And now you're kind of in a similar spot where if you leave this Ursaluna in on the next turn to get some damage off, that could be a big deal, but then you essentially have to swap it out on the next turn, which could leave yourself for Wolfe to potentially swap the Gothitelle in if he thinks the Ursaluna will be attacking this turn, and that way you'll lock it on the field for the following turn and make sure it does get knocked out by that Perish Song. Porygon takes the field in place of Jumpluff, and Wolfe does not swap Gothitelle in, instead opts to protect that Politoed.
Politoed is nice and safe and protect from Incineroar, so no damage coming out onto Wolfe's end of the field as this Perish Song turns are ticking away. Facade, of course, not going to do anything into that Incineroar. So now we're just at a situation where next turn, well, everything except for the Porygon gets KO'd. So I think next turn we're going to see a lot of switching of Pokemon, especially to Marco.
Luna goes down. That is the single Pokemon that can do the most damage left, next to Jumpluff, which can do 0 damage, Porygon, which is all right, and then Incineroar, which is already taking a lot of damage itself.
Gothitelle is swapping in, Porygon 2 swapping out. So we get to see Jumpluff hit the field once again. And with that Earthquake, Incineroar is sticking around, so there will be 2 KOs at the end of this turn, and Gothitelle a lot of damage. Incineroar doesn't even need to wait for the Perish Song to get KO'd. It's going to get KO'd right here, right now. A lot of damage into the Gothitelle. If you're losing your main source of damage, then that's damage that actually could be really significant.
It could, especially considering that your Porygon and your Incineroar, have the Terra Blast, have the knockoff that can do decent chunks of that Gothitelle. You at least activated its Citrus Berry, so the HP it's at chance at some kind of, Tailwind Sunny Day play to mitigate that. Kingdra does re-enter the field, so we're in a position where, you're very threatened by the idea of a Politoed swap plus a Muddy Water. Does still have Kingdra, at a pretty healthy state of HP, but has to be careful not to get put to sleep.
Incineroar is going to be swapping out on this turn, so Porygon 2 coming on out yet again. Consistent with the attacks and no switch for Wolfe. So talking about having speed control later in, that's going to be at least on Marco's end. Draco Meteor into the Porygon 2, just below half health, and a special attack that is now dwindled away onto that strong attacking Pokemon. But if we're talking about speed advantages, Trick Room is going to put it all in Wolfe.
Kingdra, before this Jumpluff can move, this could be a game-winning turn.
You need enough damage, and you also need to connect. Instead, we're going to go for something a little bit more accurate, and with the Sun, means this will be a super effective hit, and Jumpluff will be taken care of. Now, Pokemon advantage in Wolfe's favor. Marco down to final 2 Pokemon. Porygon 2 with the Ice Beam into the Kingdra is just not the damage that he needs.
The last turn of Sun there, taking great advantage of that sunny day set up by the jump left. Who needs to, connect your Drake of Meteors? Who needs to worry about, the -2 special attack when you have that super effective Life Orb Weather Ball? And now Wolfe is fine.
As well. Fake Out is going to be a little bit of chip into Gothitelle, but Wolfe, I think, can play this a little slowly out. Kingdra, that -2, the Draco Meteor into the Incineroar will hold on with just a little bit. -4 now for the Kingdra, and its own health slowly but surely going away. So the Ice Beam follow-up, that'll actually put it in a position where we're now even at 2 apiece.
We're even at 2 apiece, but I think this is now a great spot for Wolfe to be in. Because the Tailwind and Trick Room are both still up, this means that Gothitelle has a chance to act first. This Incineroar cannot protect itself. You can go straight for the Psychic, and then you could encore the...
It's all coming down to the Politoed. It's so fitting. Psychic, Incineroar, now it's just going to be this Porygon 2, and you called it. It can just be locked down, and it can be the saddest Porygon 2 out there in the world. But also, it's decently low health. You try and just do a little bit more with that Weather Ball. Not enough to KO. We saw it was the recover, but this is also where Wolfe can get the lockdown in the next turn.
It's true. I mean, you're not doing any damage this turn because you're going for recover. It's a bit of a trade-off.
We saw the Torkoal versus Politoed yesterday. A little bit of a better chance, but this damage slowly being done. With the Terastallization for the Politoed, that is going to be a nice little chunk, but no freeze means Politoed can retaliate. The Weather Ball, again, consistent.
No.
The critical hit, bringing it down to 5 HP. Just a sliver away from closing this out.
And if there was any chance for Marco to win this game, I think it just evaporated. The twist.
So Weather Ball, Politoed, the last